last month.
we went through some changes that we had handed out to all the members. And we're gonna continue that discussion tonight and keep going through that.
Sorry. Like echoing that. No, I found that, I fixed it.
We good now?
We're good.
All right. So. With that. After you have without being standing
Yes.
in front of you,
We're on future ones.
this is where we are.
This, right?
And everybody have a copy, Paul?
This thing here,
Yeah. Yep. And
yes,
we're at the paragraph that starts future land uses. Everybody with me? Strategic land use is the primary tool for preserving all of those rural character, despite the oftentimes contentious nature of future land use planning. It's important that the town's top priority. Preservation of rural character is clearly reflected in both the name and description of the future land. Use designation, land use designation. However, it's important to note these designations are intended to provide recommendations on general land use activities that should be encouraged in each designated land use areas rather than listing specific uses that would be adopted within the zoning ordinance. Like most of the recommendations outlined in this plan, future land use designations are designed to help preserve the community's rural small town character. Which future land use planning is heavily influenced by the different elements of the community. Particularly its abundant natural resources, community facilities, limited infrastructure. And backbone transportation network. Using current land use patterns as a starting point. It says see land use element appendix A. Recommended future land use designations take into consideration the existing conditions and desires of the community. Public input from residents and property owner stakeholders in various committees and commissions. And the town council was provided to develop goals and strategies outlined throughout this plan. And the action plan. Based on these considerations. 7 future land use designations have been identified. Each focusing on different character defining features of the community. The implementation plan. Geez, that's just in my thumb. The implementation element and action plan are some of the most important components of the comprehensive plan. The recommendations outlined in the action plan are intended to help address some of the concerns of the community, enhance the existing resources of the town, and work towards achieving the vision of this plan. Conservation / protected lands. The conservation protected lands designation includes all properties owned by the National Forest Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Avian Conservation Center. Parks. Parks land use designation includes the All Park site and the property owned by the Charleston Parks Foundation. Conservation residential. This land use designation prioritizes areas for the preservation of natural resources and the community's rural character. Common land uses include single-family detached home, manufactured homes, and agriculture. The least dense residential zoning district recommended in this plan with a minimum lot size of 3 acres would be applied in areas with the conservation residential land use designation. Rural designation. Rural residential land use designation is established to accommodate the community's primary residential district. This land use designation is maps in areas with parcels of smaller acreage concentrated along streets or roadways. The most common land uses include single-family detached and manufactured homes. Ideal zoning will establish a district with minimum lot sizes between 1.5 to 3 acres to be applied in these areas. New development should reflect the street and land use patterns of existing neighborhoods to maintain the rural character of the community. Yeah, go ahead.
where do we go about amending this? How do we do that?
I have an editable copy from the COG, and after all of these are gone through, I'm gonna go through the entire document.
Tell me
and
what
make
in our exercise.
So I would like to propose an amendment to the rural residential aspect. Is it appropriate to do that now at this time?
Yeah, it's a free flowing discussion, so if there's anything that you would like to see changed, you can
Okay,
discuss
sure.
about that.
Under the rural residential, paragraph that starts out with that. Where it says ideal zoning will establish a district with minimum lot sizes between 1.5 to 3 acres to be applied to these areas. From my experience, whenever you provide a range like that with no rational basis to establish what it's going to be, that becomes problematic. I would suggest that we put in acreage. And to make it easy, just for the purpose of our discussion right now, add them together and divide by 2. Which would be what? 4.5, 2.25. 2.25 acres applied to those areas. When you make that way of motion, or
No, because it's gonna be shown in like. For first reading, the proposed edits, and if you would like to make additional amendments, it would have to be a formal motion and second.
okay, so that's how we should go about this going forward. It's just stop and say what we would like.
Yes,
And then discuss.
Okay,
yes,
all right.
Yeah.
That's the freedom of a work session. You guys have more,
Well,
ability to kind of.
That's my recommendation.
all right. We get anyone else? All right, next one is village residential, the densest residential land use designation. Village residential is established to include areas immediately adjacent to the town's existing commercial nodes. New development should reflect the street and land use pattern with adjacent neighborhoods also located in this designation. Minimum lot size and zoning districts apply to this designation would be a minimum of 1 acre. Any comments? Village center.
Like to see it higher.
Where does agricultural come in here? Because isn't, I mean, that's probably most of the area in our town is agricultural zone.
Actually, it's going away. And it looks to be replaced with conservation residential or rural residential, one of the 2. We don't have a future land use map, but if you did, you look at it and more current zoning map. But if you did, you'd see that.
So it's just a name change.
Well, you wouldn't be able to change the name, so the comprehensive plan wouldn't be changing the zoning code, it's the guiding document. to make it speak. So
But
you would then put in the best fit for that rural residential and agricultural. That's what I believe you have to say. Yes,
Well, I'm not thinking that these things would translate into zoning district classifications.
then that would be a separate ordinance to change.
Yes, but that's what would happen. Agriculture would go away and cease to exist.
But all the things that you're allowed to do on agricultural would still be the same.
Would all depend on what the new zoning classification provided.
We would determine that when we do the zoning classifications.
What did you say, Wendy?
We would decide that when we're doing the zoning classification, what's allowed for each category. Is my understanding, is that right, Catherine?
Did you have some thoughts?
Like this is just a framework and then the details come when we change land use, zoning, those things.
Sorry, I interrupted you, sorry. Would you have some thoughts about that?
I mean, the only issue that I sense is minimum lot sizes that we want to kind of get a handle on. If there are other things in agricultural zoning that need to change, I don't know of them. But all these people that have agricultural zoning, are they gonna have issues now that we're changing their zoning? I don't think they would if the only change is name. Well, one is shooting. You can shoot on agricultural zone land, right?
Yes.
Anywhere in the town, actually.
Residential, I mean.
There's no prohibition against discharge of firearms in the town.
Okay.
All right, moving on.
Is everybody happy with the minimum of 1 acre?
What do you say?
Is everyone happy with the minimum of 1 acre in a village residential land use definitions?
What did we just change?
Changed it to half acre as a stopgap.
Half acre?
Yes.
Well, actually, that was just for the residential.
Right,
zoning,
yeah, 'cause we don't have this.
which is a little bit different. This is gonna be, it would be that residential. It, next to the village center. Land use designation. There'll be a village center and a village residential in conjunction with the village center. And as currently proposed, the, that would have a minimum lot size of 1 acre.
So like the houses close to. City office. Right,
Excuse me?
we're considering like Seawee Outpost, that area is village.
Yes, if the-
Center,
if
correct?
If this is approved and the zoning is changed to reflect it, yes, you're correct.
So like if someone bought a house, they want- it would be, that would be considered a village residential. So how are we gonna determine? How far village center reaches,
We have a map that shows it.
but we determine it. Yes.
Yes.
We do, okay. And so we're also gonna determine what's village residential. 1 mile from village center, 2 miles from, is that? The understanding?
Wherever it's shown on the map, and the issue that I have with the map is that it's not very clear. Can we get a better one? When you blow it up, it gets very fuzzy. It's unlike the town's zoning. It's based on the county GIS parcel map. So when you blow that up, it retains its clarity. But with the map that is, been provided to us by the call for the, future land use map designation areas, it's not tied to parcels, it's just on paper in the general area, and it would be much more helpful, which I think what you're asking about, is, then we could actually have defined boundaries. for
Correct.
this, Where.
And change boundaries if we deem necessary.
Correct, yeah, but
Right,
now
that's
it's just, now it's amorphous, you can't really tell where it is geographically in a specific manner.
But we can do that, Catherine.
Inside the comprehensive plan document, I can try to make it little, like, work with it, in design, it gets a little bit finicky with abilities, making it clear. But when we're making the changes to the zoning map and like physically making that, we would use our zoning map, so it would be that clear document. Okay.
We do that here, we find that out, would the county do that?
We've been
for us?
working with the counties to be doing that, so that we have that there in GIS, I'm not
So
sure
do they update for zoning map currently?
I know that we were working towards it, I don't know who updates it currently.
Well, and that's been done since 2022. Yeah, 3 years. So, but I don't know that a whole lot of zoning changes have gone on, for you to say the truth, but anyways, it ought to be updated. On more regular basis than that. I'm just wondering who does it. I think, the county has indicated that they can do this for us, but it would cost us money. Which I think that would be, if we can't get it done any other way, that would be money well spent, because then we would have an accurate map. In particular, if there was one that we could have to. I don't know if anybody's got this kind of skills with the town, not but.
I mean, I've done it before for manipulated, because we had to redo it for Seabrook, we redid the entire zoning map, we even blew it up and drew it out in grand perfect before getting it done, so that we could play around with it a little bit easier, but we can make it work.
Okay, well, that would be helpful.
Good now?
Yeah, well. I don't want to be too problematic with it, but my way of thinking about all this is it's kind of. If not too complicated, I would just, one commercial kind of area and call it a neighborhood commercial, and this is wherever we thought should be commercial, and that's what it would be. We wouldn't have all these disparate things.
You're talking about what we're about to go through, or what we've already talked about?
Well, what we're looking at right now, I don't, I don't.
All right, so let's, so moving on,
Maybe that.
the center is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, maybe that's, yeah, that's the way it is. So there, I think there's only two. This village center and town center, and if you look at the next one, it's town center from the way.
So
So right now, all we would have is village center, zone, commercial zone, and town.
I don't care what we call it, I'm just asking your question,
Yeah,
not trying
sure.
to change it. Why is it called village, if we have village residential, why do we not call it village commercial?
It's just a name.
I mean, like village center sounds like the name of a shopping center. You know what I'm saying, where it's
Yeah.
like, so because we're using residential, then the opposite is commercial, or that's just a suggestion, I have more clarity.
I like it.
I mean, someone might say that this is village center because town hall sits here.
I think in the proposed plan, this was the town center, so like this would be like the municipal center that.
Right.
So I think they were trying to differentiate the two, but we. Gone through and I believe in the proposed amendments that their town center is sitting.
Right, right. That's one thing I would suggest, maybe changing it to village. Again, I don't care. Nobody should change it.
I like.
Not a hill I'm gonna die on.
All right. So village commercial, this land use designation is primarily applied to existing commercial goes along 17. And is intended to allow for certain low intensity commercial developments or parcels. For establishments that provide goods and services targeting on all residents, and with some minor allowances for travelers. Transitory uses such as outdoor storage and mini storage units are no longer desirable here. Zoning and land development regulations should require that development. Proposals in the village center area undergo a rigorous site plan and architectural review process to ensure the village character is maintained. Then we scratched out the town center part, which. I think that replaces that. Yeah. All right. Priority investments, Oildale has several areas of opportunity that acted upon. Can help achieve vision of the community and improve the quality of life for our residents with its rural nature. And small population of the town, Oildale should focus resources towards. Enhancing local community assets like parks and recreation rather than larger regional or state. Infrastructure or capital projects like roads and schools, town officials should continue coordinating with regional agencies. Like Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester State Council of Government. Otherwise known as BCD, COG, state agencies like SCDOT and SCDNR. Or federal agencies like the National Forest Service, as their relationships are important. To maintain as the town continues to grow. The South Carolina Department of Parks, Rec and Tourism has several funding opportunities. The town of Oildale may be eligible for to aid in. Be eligible. For to aid in funding. Okay, some of these projects, grants like the Land and Water Conservation Fund could help the town acquire land for conservation. All Parks and Rec Department could help Finish the Allendale Town Park for one of the undiscovered South County grant program to help fund development of tourism. Related opportunities in the Allendale area as discussed throughout this plan. You can stop me anytime if you want to.
I'm good. I read through it before.
As discussed throughout this plan, the preservation of all our rural character is a priority for the community. Grants like the ones mentioned above will not only expand on those parks with.
Let's see what you got there. It's not what I got here. Or unless you skip over.
Yeah, that's what you got.
And protection and preservation. What?
Let me get that far in.
Okay,
You should get the letter. Guess there's nothing on about here. Grants like the ones mentioned above. And not only, yeah, not only expand on those parks, recreation and tourism opportunities, but also. Would also help preserve the rural character of the community and the rural lifestyle of the residents. Priority investments, Allendale has several areas of opportunity that if acted upon. Can help achieve the vision of the community, improve the quality of life of residents. With its rural nature and small population, Town of Allendale should focus resources towards enhancing local community assets like parks and recreation. Rather than larger regional or state infrastructure or county clubs and roads and schools, town officials should continue and coordinate with the BBC traffic and fire.
I have a question. In the plan itself. We're still showing a picture of the 2001 version of the town center concept plan.
Yeah, that would be deleted, that was, that's at the last meeting.
Okay.
Moving forward down to the last paragraph on this page, the South Carolina Department of Parks, Rec, and Tourism. Has several funding opportunities at the top, all maybe add maybe forward. To, where did, that's on this, that's only 5 pages too. You already read that?
It is. It's in the first paragraph.
Yeah. So these last 2 paragraphs are
Yeah.
needs.
we probably need to fix that. The only thing that's changed, I think, is what's in bold.
No, he's saying this was.
I understand,
duplicated.
yes, that they've been repeated, and that doesn't mean. But the only thing other than that that's changed is the bolds now. Which says and protection and preservation of all natural resources.
Maybe we just read the bold stuff.
Excuse me,
Can we just read the bold stuff?
I think that's what we ought to do.
Okay,
And point out the strikeouts, unless somebody else has an issue with. Something that's not bold or written through. So,
bold,
we don't, and rather than read those,
right.
I like that.
Alright.
Under rural lifestyles,
What'd you say
rural lifestyle has a bold, that means it's an additional.
on the next page?
What page is that in the?
I don't think it's been,
We don't have page.
yeah. I don't think it's been,
Which one do you want? Why do you?
we struck out this because it was a duplicate.
Yeah,
And so my next page says community character at the top.
community character.
And then the number 2, rural lifestyle has a bold sentence, which means it's an
Yeah.
addition.
Okay,
That's the part you read.
so under number 2, rural lifestyle, all the prioritize, this is in bold. And prioritize policies that protect and maintain the existing rural character of the town. Next paragraph on natural environment, for the next number 3, natural environment. All will prioritize policies that ensure new development will protect the health of the natural environment, the water quality of our estuaries. ICW and the Kingdom of Maine National Wildlife Refuge. All recognizes the importance of maintaining a network of connected habitats for wildlife movement as an important part of preserving and protecting the natural environment. The built environment is number 4. And will prioritize policies that minimize disturbance to terrain,
Well, let's say that we're striking what we're striking. off.
Okay. So we're striking specific site requirements adopted to minimize disturbance to terrain, conserve visual resources, and protect open space.
And replacing it with,
And will prioritize policies that minimize disturbance to terrain, limit impervious surfaces, conserve the existing tree canopy, its rural character, preserve wetlands, and protect open space. All right, and then next one is number 5, is rural density. We struck through Aldo Community strives, and in its place, we put the Aldo community is dedicated to. Then we struck to a maximum of 3 units per acre in the densest locations at major roadway intersections called village nodes. And then decreasing densities away from these nodes towards the town peripheries. And we added in, Allendale will strive to work with the natural environment as the town accommodates future growth, mitigating or restricting environmental and natural resource degradation and allowing natural systems to function properly. Moving on, under 6, circulation. Commercial activities requiring heavy equipment must be carefully considered for the potential impact on traffic congestion and the safety of pedestrians and other modes of transportation. Moving on to number 7, commercial services. Avoid development of big box businesses and businesses that primarily serve the needs of highway travelers instead of residents. Number 8 is safety. Allendale recognizes that building homes, businesses, and infrastructure in the path of destructive and frequent flooding is not sustainable. Under number 9, community culture, there's no change. Under number 10, sustainability, there's no change. And now it's on to the action plan. I don't know how y'all want to do this. I mean, you want to read it?
just read what we struck out. And then the bold, what we added.
Under A2, we struck out. It's in reference to festivals and events at the town park. We struck out the annual Blue Crab Festival as a character defining an event for the community. It's no longer a town event. What else?
B1,
Which one?
B1,
B1,
Oh, B1. With Allendale Town Park, as a passive park facility. We struck out and Rockefeller Trail. Under B3. We added appropriate, into the, it says support private and public investment in local environmental, historic and cultural resources as a driver for appropriate economic development. And we added appropriate to that sentence. And C1, we struck out. C, goal. We'll see expand appropriate economic services. So we added appropriate. C1, we struck out work with local businesses and all on the phone to reactivate the local chamber of commerce. Identify areas appropriate to accommodate the development of light industrial warehousing, outdoor storage, and or construction support service uses compatible with the town's rural character. That's the total strikeout of all that. Under C3, we're going to coordinate with appropriate entities, and appropriate entities was added. To and SC Works and Ready SC was struck out. And to promote the availability of workforce development services for local businesses, and we struck out and industries. On that one, on C5, we struck out the words. To minimize and ensure safe distances between access points. And then we added in Highway 17 in bold. C6, we took out to locate 3 commercial nodes. We talked about that previously. C7, We struck out with a secondary focus on businesses that primarily serve travelers and through traffic. C8, we struck out the whole sentence. Support for development of a pedestrian oriented town center at US 17 Gold Road, Seawood Road intersection. C8. Is that,
We replaced it with this verbiage.
yeah, it's a replacement. Encourage proactive annexation by the town to ensure compatible development of identified rural fringe areas. C9. It's an addition. Adopt a short-term rental ordinance to mitigate the possibility of STRs or short-term rentals dominating residential neighborhoods and ensure compliance with noise ordinances. That's all of the changes on that page, right?
Correct.
Yes. Any comments or questions at this point? No. D3, we struck out develop a trails master plan for the community, town staff, community facilities. D10. Work with Charleston County to ensure increased presence and acceptable responsiveness of emergency service, including fire protection, sheriff protection, and EMS. Under E, we struck out modified zoning and land use regulations to allow for small overnight accommodations, i.e. bed and breakfast, the rural nature of the town, and expand the range of services offered to the community, not short-term rentals. E3, we struck out, and it said embark on a community branding campaign that highlights the town's rural lifestyle and synergy with the national environment. E4, we struck out market owned as the gateway to the Keep Remaining National Wildlife Refuge and Francis Marion National Forest. E5, we added in pursue, we added an appropriate under pursue appropriate grants from the South Alabama Parks, Rec, and Tourism. And then we added with attention to the future costs that may be associated with saying. And then we struck out market and advertise the town. Any comments?
I guess just housekeeping kind of one that since we got rid of E1 and E3 and E4, they should just be renumbered as appropriate to reflect this changes.
Yeah, they got really good. That's E6, we struck out boost the industry as a character defining feature for the town and supportive businesses. E8, which is an added, replace all street lights with LED lighting and down lighting to reduce light pollution. E9 is an added, limit street lighting and require downshifting of private lighting to retain the night sky and protect the migrating bird population that use the Atlantic Flyway. Goal F, we struck out strengthen current and said establish architectural and site design guidelines and materials. F2, we struck out consider and said establish in reference to establish architectural design standards. F3, we struck out under modify current zoning and land development regulations to require, I used to say additional, we changed it to appropriate vehicular access to downs. And moving down to G, goal G, we struck out under G1, where it says implement a maximum impervious surface repellent on all properties with large or high quality areas of natural resources, and we struck out with large or high quality areas of natural resources. G2
And added all properties.
take it.
We added all properties,
The word all was added.
Sorry,
not just,
all,
not just
yes.
one that was struck out.
G2, we struck out a conservation. Can't read that because it's, and then we put in resilient conservation residential. So it says, consider the establishment of a resilient conservation residential district. consider the establishment of resilient conservation residential districts. Considering flood risk, sea level rise, wildfire risk, et cetera, with low density regulations. So we struck out conservation and put in resilient conservation residential districts. Under G3, we added, and to protect large trees at the end. This one says to modify the town's pre-order to include provisions focused on the conservation and restoration of the town's diverse tree canopy, and then the end, we added, and to protect all large trees. G4, we added total available acreage for development to exclude fresh salt and brackish wetlands, stormwater ponds and roads. G5, we took out the word consider. Under consider increasing the amount percent of open space required redevelopments. Comments?
Just says increase the amount percent of open space.
Increasing.
No, increase, no in.
Increase.
Now. Increase the amount of percent of open space.
All right. Next page, G6. We struck out promote the use of next gen community septic systems instead of. Then we added traditional septic systems to be used in new developments.
I'm not sure we should have struck out promote the use of.
What would you like it to say? Because it's confusing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be next gen, because we can
Right.
specify like a specific company,
Mhm.
but. Everything else. Is up to, like that one is high recommendation too.
Oh, so if it feels like there should be another word in front of traditional. You know, because we're using words like explore, promote, establish.
I would say require,
Maybe it's require.
yes,
Require traditional septic systems to be used in new developments.
bingo,
Require.
Meaning not engineered.
correct. You can even put that in there in parentheses at the end. About that, good, I like it.
Can I ask, can we skip back just for one quick second? I just want to make sure on G3. Where it says protecting all large trees, should we add a caveat of large healthy trees? Because we just addressed this in the tree ordinance. That we would give a variance for
I like it.
unhealthy trees.
Which one is that, Wendy?
G3.
G3,
I guess I just don't want it to be in conflict
Right.
with what we just passed.
Yeah.
that's good.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
All right. G7, we add adopt ordinances to require low impact development standards for all development. G8, we add explore viability of creating resource conservation districts for areas identified on the future land use map. G9 is another addition, adopt formal septic system management program. G10, establish methods to reduce potable water use for non-drinking water purposes to reduce potable water consumption. G11, another ad, prohibit disturbance of any old wetlands and require substantial buffers around any wetland and any development. G12 is another ad, require BZA approval for any land disturbance within established distance of grand trees. G13 is another ad, require developers to perform a wetland survey by independent experts approved by the town for any new developments. G14 is another ad, require soil analysis for all septic tank installations by independent experts acceptable to the town. Any questions or comments? Okay, moving on to goal H. Under H1, we struck out partner with DES. To educate residents on the importance of methods for septic system maintenance. It just says to educate residents on the importance. Of it. H2, we struck out. To minimize stormwater runoff, and it says adopt a low impact development ordinance. H3, nothing changes. H4, we add. Implement a plan to better assess the cumulative impacts of development on the natural environment and require this assessment of all new developments. And then we struck out review existing land development regulations to ensure that all new major developments are required to conduct an assessment of cumulative impacts on the natural environment. H5 is an addition, identify priority actions to protect water quality and enact ordinances to enforce same, including but not limited to riparian buffer areas. H6 was an add, partner with USFS, Cape Romaine Refuge, and other appropriate organizations to prevent habitat fragmentation through conservation of identified habitat spaces within the town. H7 is an add. Through the development review process, ensure that new development maintains appropriate wildlife corridors. H8 is an add. Reduce air, water, and soil pollution to keep our landscapes and waterways productive and healthy, and to contribute to personal health and safety. Now, obviously, we all want to do that, but how do we do that? H8, something that talks about reduce, it says reduce air, water, and soil pollution. To keep our landscapes and waterways productive and healthy, and to contribute to personal health and safety. I guess my question is, do we have to add things to make that happen?
We'll need to adopt zoning ordinance, and land development regulation changes once this is adopted, to put these things into effect.
You can also do it through like a marsh management plan too, or the waterway management plan. A lot of coastal communities are doing that, so like. Having that, an additional plan that's in tandem with your comp plan that says that these are what we're looking for, natural landscaping, what our, marshes look like, and, how to protect like a living shoreline to reduce that kind of runoff. You can do it that way.
Okay. That's moving on. H9 is another add, explore options to discourage unauthorized land clearing and development after land clearing. H10, develop and adopt uniform set of stormwater standards and design guidelines that meet the goal of protecting the region's sensitive environment and residents' quality of life. H11 is another add, the protection of wetlands and wetland buffer areas from encroachment, pollution, degradation, alteration, or elimination is a crucial element of the town's stormwater and water quality management plans and support the resilience efforts in anticipation of more frequent and severe weather events, as well as documented and protected sea level rise. Procedures to protect, conserve, enhance, maintain wetlands and wetland buffers are in the public interest and support the general welfare of the town. Policies will be enacted to ensure protection. H12 is another add. Establish and enforce buffer and or setback requirements for wetlands, floodplains, and areas protected to be impacted by sea level rise as part of new development. H13 is another add. Draft the wetlands protection and conservation ordinance that is stricter than both SCDES and USACE regulations. Going down to goal I. First one, we added I4, coordinate, enhance flooding resiliency strategies, planning, design, and engineering standards across all codes, plans, and policies. I-5 is an add, promote resiliency and sustainability as a necessary growth strategy. I-6 is an add, evaluate suitability of the developable areas based upon all natural hazards.
There are 2 by 6s.
What?
I'll make sure that when we're going through, because I think that some of them weren't added in this document.
Looks like I-6 continued, but, review and formally, and this is another ad, review and formally adopt the Southern Low Country Stormwater Design Manual as amended. Create long-term plans to direct new development and infrastructure away from hazardous areas. I-7 is an ad, incentivize land purchases and identify hazardous prone areas for open space preservation. I-8, tailor the Charleston Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Report to meet the needs of the town. I-9 is another ad, natural resilience, develop a wetlands protection ordinance to include flood management practices and provide prevent continued overdevelopment of these critical buffers. I-10 is another ad, explore natural and nature-based solutions for improving natural resilience and implement green infrastructure techniques and stormwater management practices on new development. Under goal J, we struck out encourage and added require. Require preservation and restoration of the very buffers. Under J1, we added. It says work with Charleston County on preserving the community's natural scenic vistas. We added and important rural characteristics. J3, we struck out continue and added develop plans for the acquisition of land or easements to protect environmentally sensitive areas. Under J4, we struck out where it says develop an immediate 10-year annexation plan. We struck out 10-year annexation plan. J5, we left alone. J6, we struck out completely. And it says to renew discussions with the U.S. National Forest Service in annexing protected forest lands along 17 to preserve the rural character and scenic integrity of that corridor. Any comments or questions? Adds or subtracts? No. Next page, J8 is an add. What kind of living is this?
We can go all the way up to 7:30, or we can end it a little bit.
This is the last page.
Right.
This is the last page.
This is. Oh, yes, awesome. We added J8, adopt the policies and ordinances that protect sensitive areas such as wetlands and riparian areas. Maintain and or increase open space, provide substantial buffers along sensitive water bodies, limit impervious surfaces, and minimize disturbance of soils and vegetation. We added J9, strengthen the tree protection ordinance. J10 is an add, develop education programs for developers and the public about project designs that minimize water quality impacts. Added J11, reduce groundwater pumping to minimize the amount of saltwater intrusion in the wells and aquifer. Under goal K, your K1, we struck out. It says adjust land use regulations. We struck out to limit hauling oriented businesses to certain areas along US 17. And we also struck out the last I guess sentence here in one of the 3 village mixed use node areas of town. So it says adjust land use regulations, focus on local retail and service-based businesses and uses. Under K2, we struck out the last sentence, which says while limiting higher density development to areas connected to the town's public water system. Under going down, K4 is an add, Evaluate existing commercial zone properties in the town and county to determine the appropriate amount, location, and scale of new commercial development. Under K5, which is another ad, adopt policies and ordinances to limit impervious areas and minimize or eliminate directly connected impervious areas. K6 is an ad, adopt policies to eliminate fill and build construction to reduce damage to the environment and flooding. K7 is an ad, implement true rural development standards that restrict impervious surface, increase the retention of natural vegetation, and respect and protect natural water resources and watersheds. K8 is an ad, utilize rural development standards, including such techniques as ingress, egress easements, flag-shaped lots, unpaved roads and driveways to minimize stormwater runoff and other negative environmental impacts. K9 is an ad. Implement development standards that prevent traditional suburban development patterns of curvilinear, cul-de-sac streets and curb and gutter stormwater management systems. Any questions or comments? All right. On the next page under rural lifestyle, we're adding ongoing will prioritize policies that protect and maintain the existing rural
Already did
character.
that.
We've done that.
We've done that page from
Well,
the beginning.
Yeah.
At the end,
Yeah, it's-
okay.
Good job.
Catherine, when do you think we see that and this online?
How quickly would the council like it?
I mean, I would like to vote on it in July. If that's possible.
I'll make it happen.
Well, we have to do another public hearing.
Yes, I'll have to advertise it 30 days, so like it would be
Okay.
at the August meeting, which would be. First. Yeah. So don't get the wrong date.
So would that be a new first reading?
So it'd be, yes, it'd be a new first reading, it'd be a brand new ordinance, so July 3rd would be first reading, and then second reading and public hearing would be at August 7th.
Okay.
And we can get that advertised to ensure that it's within the 30 days.
Okay.
Could we get the math fixed too? If possible.
I can try, because I know that the COGS did make that change and updated it, but I'm not sure if it's going to be clear in the comprehensive plan.
The county has offered to do it. I think that this was $125 or so,
No.
but it's not a lot of money. And we would have a map, a future land use map that is comparable in clarity with the county zoning. Just based on the county GIS.
I can ask them, I'm not sure if I can have it ready by July,
Try.
yes, I can try.
All right.
Motion to adjourn,
Second. Second,
all in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?